Okay, so here we are again on number 15. Let's just do it again real quick, because I want that concept as we move forward. 2 times f of x plus 3 is 15. One more time. What are you supposed to do with f of x?
That's y.
That's y, right? You with me? All the function letters, f of x, g of x, h of x, all that stuff, that's just y. You just replace it immediately with y. So this is 2y plus 3 is 15.
Isn't it 3? Ow!
Is it 3? Oh, 3, yeah. I just wrote it down too quick. Thank you. Yep, totally. 3f of x, 3y. There we go. Thank you. So yeah, so just replace that with y. That just becomes y right away. And then what do we do from there? What do we do now? Yeah, notice, by the way, this doesn't have any x, huh? And what does that mean when one of the letters is missing? It's always going to be either a flat line or a vertical line. Remember that? When one of the letters is missing, it's either a flat line or a vertical line. So you look at this and right away we're like, okay, it's one of them, flat or straight up and down lines. No slant to it at all. Let's finish. Let's solve for y. So how do you solve for y? Subtract 3 from both sides. And we get 3y is 12. Last step. Divide by 3. Y is 4. So then here's the y-axis. You just put a line. That's why that is the correct answer. You just put a line through the y-axis at 4. And as far as the clicking goes, to make the line, you just click any 2 dots. You can just click here and here, or any 2 places that are on that line. It doesn't matter where. Because remember, the program makes you click twice and then it makes the line. Just click any 2 dots that are on that line, and it's good. Does that make sense? And then it asks another question. What's the slope? The slope is the steepness. That line is completely flat. His steepness is 0. Slope 0. Totally flat. No slant at all. Good on that? So if it has only one letter, if one of the letters is missing, in other words, it's going to be flat or straight up and down. All right. Okay, so 2 minus 5x equals 8 plus 2x. They want me to graph it. What do you think, right? As soon as you notice that, as soon as you look close at that equation, notice it's missing a letter, isn't it? Mm-hmm. There's no y anywhere.
So it's going to be straight up and down.
So you know it's going to be either straight sideways or straight up. Anyway, so go ahead. So what do? You just solve for that x. There's no y in there. Normally we solve for y, but there is no y.
Just combine terms.
Yeah, just combine things, solve for. So go ahead. Let me let you do that rather than me just whipping it out real quick. Go ahead and get x alone, and then you can go ahead and draw a line that goes through the x-axis at that number.
I hate the internet password.
Is it in and out?
Yes. It makes doing homework very hard.
Oh, I need somebody that's good at taking notes. Is anybody really good at taking notes? I need a note taker that's going to be here every day and takes good, straight notes. Or any notes? What's going to be here every day? Anybody planning to be here every day? Abraham?
I'll do it.
That'd be great if you're willing to do that.
Do they just make copies of my
Yeah, it just makes copies. It's special paper. Yeah, just come up after class. I'll explain it. That would be great. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So what do? We have x's on both sides. So you get rid of one of them, huh? It doesn't really matter which one. So because you don't want 2 x's. So when you have x, so don't worry about the 2 and the 8. Right now, don't worry about the 2 and the 8 at all. Your first focus is these x's. We don't want 2 x's. What do you do about that? You basically get rid of one of them. It doesn't matter which one by doing the opposite. So I usually do the lower one. So I'll do the opposite of negative 5x. What's the opposite of negative 5x?
Add 5x.
Add 5x. And then whatever you do to one side, you have no choice but to do the same thing to the other. You got to keep the balance, right? So this is gone. Is that good? And so we get 2 equals 8 plus 7x. Now, it would have been okay if you could have subtracted 2x from both sides. That works fine, too. That would have got rid of the 2x. It doesn't matter. Just get rid of one of them. We don't want 2 of them. So now, x is saying, I want to be alone over here. So what do we do to get x alone over there? Subtract the 8, like that. So minus 6 is 7x. Last step to get x alone, divide by 7. So there we go. We have x is minus 6/7. Now that's not a slope, is it? That's not, rise 6, run 7, or because it's only a slope when it's y equals and it's a fraction next to x. That's not what we have here. So what is that then? That's just where it goes through the x-axis. In other words, the graph. Well, that's a number just a little bit lower than 1. That's like negative point, I don't know, 89 or something on the calculator. It's something that's just underneath 1. So it's negative 1 almost, right? So I'm going to go through the x-axis. Here's negative 1, negative 2. So where is it? It's about right there. It's almost to negative 1. It's a line going through the x-axis at, and we're done. Well, actually, we got to answer slope. But first off, is that good? See how I got the picture? So which one of those? This is the way it'll be on the exam we take in a couple weeks in multiple choice. So which one? Well, it's already checked, huh? It's clearly C. Right? See the line? It's almost at negative 1. Okay, now what's the slope of that line? That line is straight up and down. So it's not zero slope, is it? But zero slope would mean flat. It's perfectly steep. It's undefined. So you can tell it's checked there. Slope is undefined. Let me write it. Slope is undefined means it's like infinity. It's really, really steep. Perfectly steep, in fact. So steep you can't even give it a number. A million's not big enough. It's perfectly steep is what that means. So straight up and down lines, their slope is undefined. Perfectly straight up and down. Does that make sense on that? The minus 6/7 is not the slope because that's not next to x, is it? We good? All right. So the moral of the story in these last two problems is what do you do when one of the letters is missing? X is missing, Y is missing. Well, then you just solve and then you just make a straight line. So we solved, got x alone minus 6/7, and then we made a straight line going through the x-axis, right? This is the x-axis, out minus 6/7, almost to minus 1. And that straight up and down slope is undefined. Okay, so y plus 3 equals 3x. 6x minus y is negative 3. So what they want me to do here is they want me to decide if the two lines are parallel or not. How do you know if two lines are parallel or not?
They're going to never intersect.
Yeah, you know what they look like? They look like this, right? Parallel lines. Let me write it over here. Parallel lines go the same direction, like parallel streets or something, right? Same direction. And what do you if they're going the same direction like that? Which one's steeper? Well, they're equally steep, aren't they? They're the same steepness if they're parallel, right? Those are two roofs, that'd be exactly the same steepness. Their slopes, which represents their steepness, are equal. Yeah, that's what it means to be parallel. Slopes are equal. Slopes are equal. Okay, so when they're asking me, are these graphs parallel, they're asking me, are their slopes equal? That's really what they're saying. Well, how do we know if their slopes are equal or not?
Because the slopes are going to be the same.
How do I look at that equation and find out if the slope, what is the slope of that equation? How do we get slope? Solve for y. Remember, to get slope, remember that? To find slope, you have to get y alone. And then the slope is the fraction next to x, right? The fraction next to x is the slope. Yeah. So you've got to get y alone. And then the fraction next to x will be the slope. So I've got to take y plus 3 equals 3x. And I've got to get y alone. So to get y alone, subtract 3 from both sides. Boom. Y equals 3x minus 3. What's the slope? There's the slope. So the slope is 3. So really, we could have just seen that one in the beginning. Huh? We didn't really have to do anything. So the slope of that one's 3. Now, what's the slope of the other one? Can I just look right now and go 6? Well, it turns out coincidentally I could, but usually it won't work. So what you technically have to do is get that y alone. So let me do that. Do that over here. So I gotta get that y alone. So let me take it over here. So 6x minus y is negative 3. So to get y alone, I'm gonna go ahead and subtract 6x. There's the equal sign, the wall, right? Subtract 6x from both sides, and what do we got? These are gone. Minus y. Oh, I'm totally running out of room. I need to get all this stuff out of the way. So minus y is minus 6x minus 3. Good so far. I'm trying to get y alone. And so I'm subtracting 6x from both sides. And now, finish getting that y alone. What do? Divide by through by minus 1. Like that. These cancel. All right, y equals, now, 2 negatives? Positive, right? And the 2 negatives positive. So the slope is right there. The slope is 6. So the slope for that one is 6. Slope for the other one is 3. So are the slopes equal? No, they're not parallel, because they do not have equal slopes. They have different slopes. That's all they wanted me to do, was find the two slopes, and if they're equal, parallel. If they're not equal, they're not parallel. Just like that. Is that okay? Flash off 19. Three x plus 4 equals y. I'm just going to put them side by side here. And 2y equals 6x minus 7. All right, so give it a try. So you need to find the slope for both of those and find out if they're equal or not. If they're equal, the lines are parallel. If not, they're not. Okay, so y is already alone in this one, huh? Y is already alone, don't need to do anything. So the slope's right there, it's 3. Slope for that one's 3. Okay, what the other one, here's the wall. I got to get y alone. What do I got to do to get y alone in the other one? Divide by the 2. So that we then get y equals 6 over 2 is 3x minus 7 halves. So we got that one right there, slope's 3. So they're both 3, so it's yes, isn't it? Yes, they're parallel. Equal slopes. Good. Questions on that? Are we happy with that? So just get y alone. Grab the slopes if they're equal, parallel. The trick on this one, they're giving me x equals 1 and x equals 4. Yeah, the trick on, and they're saying, are they parallel or not? Well, the trick is you can't solve for y. There is no y. Right? So they're trying to throw you a curveball here. They're seeing if you can hang in with this kind of a little bit of a different question. You can't solve for y. Okay, so what do? Well, you could graph them though. I mean, real quick. What does it mean about the graph when there's only one letter? When one of the letters is missing? What is that going to mean about the graph? It's going to be, yeah, either straight, sideways or vertical, right? How do you know which one? Well, you just say this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. You want me to put a line through x equals positive 1. Where's that? Here's positive 1, positive 2, negative 1, negative 2 on the x-axis, so right through positive 1 there. Right? Isn't that what that one is? I put a line right through the x-axis at positive 1. And then for the other one, they want me to put a line right through the x-axis at positive 4. So that's the graph. So I'm actually going to just look at the graph. I can't solve for y, so I'm just going to look at the graphs really quick. One of them is a line going through the x-axis at 1. One of them is at 4. So you tell me, what do you think about those lines? Are they parallel or not? Yeah, they're straight. They're parallel, right? They're straight up and down.
Looked at it and said there's only x, so obviously they're going to be parallel.
Yeah, that's good. You're right. You could. You don't have to draw it. If you can just tell just from the beginning, yeah, that's plenty good enough. Yeah, they're going to be parallel. And what are their slopes, by the way? What's the slope of a straight up and down line? Yeah, it's so steep you can't even give it a number. It's more than 1,000,000, so we just say undefined. Yeah, so that's what they're asking. They're undefined, and yes, they're parallel. Is what they're saying. Is that good? Handle that curveball? So, yeah, let me just write that out. So, parallel lines equal slopes. Perpendicular lines so parallel, as you know, same direction. So perpendicular means opposite directions. They intersect at a right angle, 90 degrees. Intersection. What that means about their slopes. Slopes are upside down. Technical math word is reciprocals. Reciprocal. Whatever, you don't need to know that name. Slopes are upside down. One is positive, one is negative. So it'd be like 2/3 and -3/2. Those would be two slopes that are perpendicular. See how they're upside down? One's positive, one's negative. You could have -1/4 and +4. Those are upside down, one positive, one negative. So whereas parallel would be like 2/3 and 2/3, or -1/4 and -1/4, right? So parallel are same, perpendicular are completely the opposite. Opposite in every way. Opposite upside down, opposite sign, one positive, one negative. See how that is? They'll try to trick you by throwing you the curveball of like this. Let me show you. Here's what they like to do. They like to give you 2/3 and 3/2 and say, hey, are those perpendicular? And we would say, this is neither. This would be a neither case. Why? Because they're not completely the same, nor are they completely opposite, because they're both positive. If one was positive and one was negative, yeah, then they would be perpendicular. But if they're both positive, then they're not completely the opposite in every way. They're upside down opposite, but they're not sign opposite. So do you get the deal? They've got to be opposite in every way to be perpendicular. Opposite upside down and opposite sign, where one is negative and one is positive, or vice versa. So parallel, completely the same in every way. Same sign, same everything. Perpendicular, opposite in every way. Opposite sign, opposite upside down. If they're anywhere in between that, it's neither. Because not all lines, there's more to life, to the life of lines than just parallel lines and perpendicular, right? I could have a line like this. I could have a line like this and another one like this, right? They're not headed the same direction. They're not completely the opposite either, right? It's like two streets that don't really hit a 90 degree, weird streets that kind of go off at a little, kind of a strange angle, right? So they're in between, they're neither. So we have three cases: parallel, perpendicular, and then neither. Parallel are exactly the same, like two streets same way. Perpendicular is like a normal intersection where the streets go opposite ways. And then neither is where they intersect, but just slightly different than each other, not completely different. Those are the three cases. So, if you got all that down, I flash off that. So we have to take those two equations then and solve for y. You always find slopes by solving for y, right? So can you do that? So I'll just leave this up for a second. Go ahead and take those two equations right here. take these two equations and get y alone in both cases, and then grab the slopes will be next to x, right? Get y alone, the slopes are next to x. And then see if those slopes are completely the same or completely the opposite or somewhere in between. Give you a second. We do okay? So I'm going to go to fresh screen. If you get that all copied down. Okay, so I'm going to take this first one. X plus 2y is 5. Got to get y alone, so subtract x from both sides. So 2y is minus x plus 5. And last step, divide through by 2. So minus x over 2 plus 5 halves. Okay, so that's the first one. What's the slope for that one? Yeah, there's really an understood 1. Remember, whenever there's a nothing next to x, it's 1. So the slope is negative 1/2 for that line, right? Good for that one. Now let me do the second one. So for the second one, it's 2x plus 4y is negative 3. So I've got to get y alone. So subtract 2x from both sides. These are gone. 4y is minus 2x minus 3. Divide through by 4. And what do we get? Y equals. Now, 2/4. We got to reduce that fraction. Whenever we have fractions, we reduce them if we can. Right? So I'm just going to divide top and bottom by 2 there to become minus 1/2. And so, what's the slope? So here's the slope for that one. It's minus 1/2. So, both those slopes are the same, aren't they? Yeah.
Why does the second equation have a negative 3?
Yeah, okay, equal.
Oh, I'm just blowing it. Turns out it doesn't mess the answer up. But, yeah, that's just wrong. That should be plus. Plus, plus, plus. But in the end, I got lucky. It didn't affect the slope. Is that good? So what? So are they perpendicular? No, clearly not. No, they're actually parallel. They're not asking me about that, but they are. We good? All is well? All right, so we get y alone, slopes are next to x. Okay, last one. So x equals 5, y equals minus 9. This again, it's always weird when there's only one letter. So whenever they give us only one, these are two separate equations, each having only one letter. We don't do the normal thing. Yeah, let me just say that as a general rule. What I'm going to be doing as we're moving through this chapter, what I have been doing, what I will continue to do, is I'll give you, the methods, the steps for doing whatever. But whenever they give you only one letter, you never do the regular steps. Never do the regular steps. That you just graph it quick. Because it's special, huh? When there's only one, bless you, when there's only one letter, it's going to be what kind of a line? Straight, vertical, or horizontal, right? Yeah. So just do that and all your questions will be answered easily. Don't worry about all the normal stuff. You know what I mean? Am I making any sense? We have our normal procedures, but then when they give us only one letter, we never do our normal stuff. We just go, hey, I can graph that. Piece of cake, just a straight line. So x equals 5, what's that? Go through the x-axis, add 5, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. Through the x-axis at 5. The other one, y-axis at negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Negative 9, way down there. Boom. That one goes through the y-axis. This is the y-axis, right? at -9, way down there. Okay, so what? Well, what was their question? First off, what do they want? They want the x equals 5. So the x equals 5, what's the slope of the x equals 5 one? Slope undefined. Are we okay with that? Right? Because that's, remember, undefined doesn't mean 0. It means like a million. It's too big to give it a number. Straight up and down, right? Undefined. So big. And then that's the first question. Second question is, what's the slope of this one? Slope 0, because that one's totally flat. Slope 0. Totally flat. 0. Final question, are they perpendicular? If you put them together, would they meet at a right angle?
Yes.
Yeah, totally. One straight up and down, one straight sideways, that's certainly perpendicular, isn't it? See how I never like flipped something over and changed it? You know, again, it's when there's only one letter, don't do the normal stuff. Just graph them real quick. And you'll be able to answer all the questions just from the pictures very easily.
Just like the other one, you should just see that there's one X and one Y. And just,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if you know that, if you just look at this and go, look, I know that means one straight up, one straight sideways, so yeah, they're perpendicular. Totally. Don't even need to draw them. Yep. If you just know what those pictures are.